Chapter 183 of One Punch Man brings us into the next major arc of the manga. In this chapter, we learn of the aftermath of Saitama versus Tatsumaki. We also learn about some very shady things the Hero Association is doing behind the scenes. And on top of that, I think most importantly actually, we might have just got introduced to a potential spy for the Tsukiyomi posing as a hero in the Hero Association. Well, to kick off the chapter, we know all is well in the world when we see a FUBUKI cover for a One Punch Man chapter, because it seems like Murata has been just like using her for covers every single chapter. And what I will say though is that this one is much deserved, because FUBUKI definitely comes in clutch in this chapter multiple times. Well, the chapter starts off with Saitama coming home after the battle with Tatsumaki, and he's unpleasantly surprised to see that Chain and Toad, Butterfly DX, and Forte are there waiting for him. It turns out that they're there because Forte wants to apologize to him in person for acting the way he did when they first met, and even offers to give him used clothes if he needs it and asks him if he wants to hang out once in a while. But crazily, we actually see him take off his hat and his sunglasses, and this is the first time that we've ever seen Forte actually show his face. Like, not even in the webcomic do we ever see his face like we do right now. Well, Saitama's kind of like uncomfortable by all this weird generosity that's coming from Forte all of a sudden, and it turns out after they leave that Forte is actually being super nice to him because he realized how unbelievably strong he was. Because we got to remember that at some point Saitama got knocked into the hospital that Forte was recovering in, and he saw firsthand how strong he actually was, and knows for a fact that it wasn't monsters that caused all of the destruction around the Hero Association headquarters. It was actually the fight between Saitama and Tatsumaki. So here we go, we have yet another person that actually fully realizes Saitama's strength, which of course is always welcomed, right? Well, we then cut to the underground base in the Hero Association where all this stuff started in the first place, and we see several A-class heroes kind of monitoring the situation and wondering how these monsters all ended up dead. Well, they kind of assume that they kind of killed each other, but it's actually a few FUBUKI group members that point out there was actually a single A-class hero that did all of this. Well, they don't buy it, and they also start questioning some of the Hero Association executives that were there when everything happened, like the ones that were dealing with Apollo just prior to FUBUKI showing up, and they kind of question how they could possibly not know who the Tsukiyomi was if they were talking to them face to face. Well, they try to play dumb and then they're interrupted, and the hero that interrupts them is actually Gearspur. And for those of you that don't remember him, he was part of the raid group that initially went into the Monster Association, and he had that big shining moment against Neon where he used his psychic powers to their full potential in order to take out Neon, and his helmet exploded and he passed out. Well, he kind of interjects in this conversation and says, "You fell for their scheme, didn't you? Tsukiyomi is the name of a secret society from some urban legend that's been around for a long time in our Esper circles. To be honest, it's a completely ridiculous rumor. Perhaps the survivors from the Monster Association decided to come and take back Psychos under the guise of some kind of trade-off. Wouldn't that make sense?" So essentially what Gearspur is saying here is that there is no Tsukiyomi. What really happened is that there were some Espers that they didn't know about that existed in the Monster Association that are coming back to claim their leader. It's kind of like the remnants of the Monster Association. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I for one see that as very unlikely, because narratively it would make a whole lot of sense for Murata and One to set up this new group of Tsukiyomi members to be this like ultra powerful organization that's creating all these artificial espers that Tatsumaki even knows about herself, that apparently were the ones that actually took her in and did research on her, and just have them, you know, be written off as actually being like the remnants of the Monster Association. That would be kind of anticlimactic, right? So then that raises the question, like, why would Gearspur be lying here? Because I do definitely think that he's lying here. Well, funnily enough, one of the videos I made a while back theorizing about Gearspur in particular might actually give us some answers here. To give you guys kind of like the quick explanation, I thought Gearspur was a very crucial person to the story, much more than a lot of people thought, because if you notice in his battle with Neon after his helmet explodes, we see these stitches across his forehead, or really over like the bridge of his nose going around his entire head. Well, coupling this with the fact that it seems like his Esper powers are like very unstable and he needs that headgear for them to function properly, I theorized that Gearspur was potentially an artificial Esper that was created in the lab that Tatsumaki was being held captive in and researched on. I kind of theorized it as the purpose of that research facility, and the crazy part is that, you know, many chapters later, it turns out that it was kind of true in a way, because the Tsukiyomi did take Tatsumaki and they were creating artificial Espers. And now that we know that Tsukiyomi members seem to also have these stitches across their foreheads, much like Gearspur does, there is a very good possibility that Gearspur is a part of Tsukiyomi and is trying to take the Hero Association off their trail. So there's a very good chance that the Tsukiyomi have a sleeper agent in the Hero Association, much like they had in the Fubuki group when it was revealed that they also had a spy in there that was like poisoning Fubuki pretty much. Pretty crazy how this stuff comes full circle, but let's move on here. We then cut over to Fubuki, who confronts a Hero Association executive named McCoy and questions him about why there was so many unregistered monsters hiding in that underground chamber. And of course we gotta remember that this was the chamber where Saitama fell into and killed them all at once. Well, McCoy claims that they were set aside as part of an experiment to test a new weapon that Dr. Bufoy was creating, but Fubuki seems to not buy that, and for good reason, because if you guys remember at the end of the previous chapter, the Mohawk Fubuki group member walked up to Fubuki with some seemingly shocking news. Well, we learn what the shocking news was now because they uncovered that they are actually trying to hold these monsters in order to sell them to a third party for a large sum of money. They're pretty much starting up this black market of monsters, like this monster trade, and this would obviously make the Hero Association look very bad, but Fubuki cuts a deal with him and pretty much says, we won't release this information to the public if you look the other way on Tatsumaki and all the destruction she caused. Let's make it seem like it was a bunch of demon level monsters like the ones that were killed here in this underground base that actually caused all this destruction, and it was Tatsumaki that defeated all of them and saved everybody. That way their lie is covered up and the Hero Association gains favor in the public again, because to that point it was made pretty clear that the general public was starting to lose trust in the Hero Association. Well, Fubuki's not done yet because we also see that she somehow recovers Psychos from the belly or something of a monster and takes her away in a car. Now we don't know exactly what purpose this has, like what Fubuki wants with Psycho specifically, and honestly it hasn't even really been fully revealed in the webcomic yet, so it's yet to be seen what role Psychos will continue to have in the story, but that definitely seems like something that we're going to be picking up again later on in the story, because we cut to a news broadcast where we see that the Hero Association held up their end of the bargain, and it's reported that Tatsumaki defeated a bunch of demon level monsters, saving multiple cities from complete destruction. Well, we actually see Saitama watching this news broadcast as he's eating ramen with Genos and calls it complete bullshit because it was actually he who stopped Tatsumaki, and the way this story is being told, it makes it seem like Saitama was the monster that created all of the destruction. Well, he quickly changes his tune when he hears that the damage caused by their fight was estimated in the billions of dollars. And seeing as how this seems to be his ticket out of like complete responsibility for the entire thing, he plays it off to Genos as him being like this humble hero that doesn't mind not getting any credit because, you know, he thinks it's okay that Tatsumaki takes the limelight for this one. Of course, gullible Genos buys it and starts taking notes on his incredible generosity. I definitely love these like stupid comedic moments between Saitama and Genos. It's something that we haven't gotten much of since we've gotten all this fighting lately, so it's very welcomed. But back at the Hero Association, we see that Tatsumaki reports to the Hero Association executives and they discuss the fact that Psychos escaped, which obviously pisses them off, but what pisses them off even more is that Tatsumaki demands that she be the only one that searches for her. This is of course because she knows that Psychos is with Fubuki and she's trying to kind of keep them off her tail, but really what can they do? You know, Tatsumaki can do whatever the hell she wants, so that's that pretty much. Tatsumaki is let off scot-free and the Hero Association has their lies covered up. Well, the thing is that doesn't seem like that's going to last very long because we cut over to Child Emperor, who was apparently very suspicious of the story being told that it was Tatsumaki fighting against all these demon level monsters that caused all this destruction. So Child Emperor kind of took it upon himself to hack the system in the Hero Association to see what really went on. And apparently what he uncovers is a long history of corruption and cover-ups. And this is actually going to be the catalyst of a much more major event that happens later on in the story. I'm not going to spoil it here, but for you webcomic readers, you kind of know where this leads. All I'll say now is that this is definitely going to be a very exciting arc for One Punch Man fans. And if you want to get updated on every single One Punch Man chapter that drops and other additional One Punch Man content, then make sure to subscribe because I post a ton of it. And if you want to make friends with other like-minded One Punch Man fans, then join my new Discord server by clicking the link in the description below. Come and make a new friend today. But that does it for today's video, guys. Have an absolutely wonderful night, and I'll see you guys in the next one.